You're now live, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Economy and Growth Select Committee. I'm Councillor Edward Siddle, the committee chair. I would like to inform everyone present that the meeting will be broadcast live via the internet, via the council's website, and will be capable of repeat viewings. The images and sound recordings may be used for training purposes within the council. In order to ensure that the meeting is managed effectively, can everyone please keep to the following guidelines? Councillors should only speak when using their raised hand function to request to speak, and only to do so when invited by the chair. Please switch your cameras and microphone off when not speaking, and remember to set your mobile phone to silent for the duration of the meeting. Any views expressed by the speaker in the meeting are the speaker's own, and they do not necessarily reflect the views of the council. Please can council be aware that the webcast will continue to stream live 20 seconds after the close of this meeting due to the time delay in live transmission. I'll now confirm the remaining members of the committee. There's got Vice Chair, Councillor Nev Clark, Councillor Dan Capper, Councillor Simon Evans, Councillor Paige Hacking, Councillor Ian Huddleston, Councillor Kev Kirkham, Councillor Chris Payne, Councillor Rachel Quinn, Councillor Peter Scott, Councillor Jill Scott, and Councillor Kath Seisland. We'll now go on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Payne, Chair.
Okay. Have we got any disclosable interest before the matter of the committee? I've got a disclosable interest at item number 12. I am a trustee of the Buxton Opera House. Are there any matters referred to the committee under the call-in procedures?
None, Chair.
And to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, that's agenda item number 4. Would anyone like to do the honours? And thanks, Councillor Clark. Does anyone else want to put their hand up first and our hand up second and say that they want to approve them? Thanks, Paige. Thank you, Councillor Hackins. Great. So we'll move on to agenda item number 5, and that is a select committee work programme. And we've discussed this in the pre-meeting that we had earlier, that we want to look at things that are coming up in the growth strategy, such as the new bridge for Whaley Bridge and other things that we can develop as well. And that was something that we're going to look at the next meeting of our select committee organisation programme. But has anyone else got anything else? Councillor Quinn?
Yeah, could we have something from the University of Derby about their future in the borough?
Yeah, I think that would be very useful, and I think it'd also be useful to find out about the halls at some point as well. But obviously that's more of a long-term project, isn't it?
Yeah, and the dome, I think, as well. So
and the dome,
yeah.
Andrew?
Yes, Chair. Just to give Councillor Quinn some reassurance, those items are included in the growth strategy action plan that's coming forward later. So the intention is that those will be included in the work programme once we have that reprogramming group.
Great, thank you for that, Andrew. Has anyone else got any comments on the work programme? Obviously, we've got another meeting in the 3rd of July, and we're going to be looking at revitalising Buxton milestones too. But hopefully, we're hoping to have a meeting before that point to put some extra items on if we've got them available. So, if no one else got any comments, I will move to agenda item number 6, the UK shared prosperity. So, Damien or Anthony is going to lead on this one, and then Mark's going to do a presentation.
Yeah, I was going to say the majority of this item is the presentation from Mark and Lorraine, The intention of the presentation is to update members on the funding that we've used in the first period. And as members will be aware, the funding arrangement has changed slightly. Instead of it coming direct to us from government, it now comes via the East Midlands Mayoral Combined County Authority. And the initial allocation from government has been tweaked this year, with the capital part of the funding been slightly increased as to what it should originally have been through the Mayoral Combined Authority. The other intention as part of the Mayoral Combined Authority is there are a number of things that boroughs and districts across the patch are funded, including particular elements of sort of business development funding, tourism funding, etc. And in this initial allocation in this first year, and we hope there'll be future years, but at this point in time, we don't know. But in terms of some of those types of programs that are done similar across the borough, what we've asked them, what's been done from the Mayoral Authority is some of those are now funded centrally, in the hope that sort of by combining the different amounts together, we'll be able to get a bit more bang for our buck. There'll also be some elements of it, including take, for example, sort of the business startup programme, where there'll still be some funding done on a Derbyshire only basis. And there's an update report on that at a forthcoming meeting of the Derbyshire Single Leadership Board. Thanks, Chair. We move on to Mark and Lorraine.
Yeah, pass over to Mark and Lorraine now. Thank you.
Okay. Lorraine, are you happy for me to lead this, or do you want to introduce?
Mark's the expert, so for those of you who haven't met him, it's Mark and the team who've been delivering over the last couple. Well, Mark's been with us just over a year and a bit, but yeah, I'll hand over to Mark for all the specifics, and then we'll pick up questions at the end or throughout as we go. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to try and share my screen if it will work. I've lost everybody. Is everybody able to see the white screen with the high peak overview on?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So as it's been alluded to, I just want to give you an overview of what we've done over the last 3 years with the original UK SPF programme and its funding, and hopefully you'll see some fantastic outputs and impact the programme has delivered. And also I'll allude at the end of the presentation what we're hoping to spend the money on, or what we allocated the money on for this year. As Anthony has said, it's the last year of the guaranteed round of UK SPF funding before any future funding opportunities may or may not be presented. So we'll be careful where we spend the money and what we spend it on. So programme overview for the last 3 years. Start off with the headline figures. We've managed to spend £2.5 million. Well, we've managed to invest £2.5 million of government funding directly into the High Peak. That's 2.1 million from the UK Share Prosperity Fund and 375,000 from the Rural Prosperity Fund. The UK, just to remind you, the UK Share Prosperity Fund was available to spend anywhere in the borough, and the REF money was specifically allocated to those rurally defined areas. Again, just to recap, our original investment priorities were set out against 3 core areas, focusing on communities and place, supporting local business, and people and skills. I'm just going to talk you through each one of those investment areas, what we said we'd aim to focus the money on, and what we delivered in turn for that. So priority 1 was our communities and place area. The original investment plan set out to provide improvements to town centres and high streets, and this also focused on increasing better accessibility, creation of and improvements to local green spaces, support for our local arts, culture, heritage and creative activities, support for active travel, support and funding for the visitor economy and tourism campaigns to bring people in and places to visit, investment in community infrastructure projects, community measures to support the cost of living, and then funding to support relevant feasibility studies to support and underpin all of these priorities. Let's kick off with one of the big headline projects that we delivered. just over £375,000 invested in community infrastructure projects. These have supported 17 community buildings in the area or right across the High Peak, with improved building renovations, energy projects, enhancement to sports clubs, theatres, new community gardens, and increased accessibility for all. And these are just a few of the photographs of different projects we supported over the 3 years. I think you can see Anthony and Damien in this one, probably doing the official opening. In addition to the community infrastructure, we've also invested nearly £70,000 worth of grant funding into local events and activities. With that money, we've supported 21 arts and cultural activities across the entire patch, reaching audiences of over 20,000 people. We've invested over £60,000 in our parks and green spaces, and 3 of the key areas of improvements there were new climbing frames and equipment in Manor Park, improved accessibility arrangements and similarly play area, and new equipment and new slides and access in the Conduit Street play area and Tintwistle. In terms of improving our active travel and contributing to the active travel master plan, we've invested nearly £100,000 in improving travel routes and accessibility. You can see from the slides on the pictures on the left-hand side, we've transformed some of those really difficult pathways and access routes that are really needed in the community, from mud paths and pools of water to new improved tarmac areas or hard, firm underfoot, hard, firm ground, so that more people, more access can be developed to and from points of access. We delivered a high street improvement grant across the town centres. We awarded nearly £40,000 for shop frontage and accessibility improvements. There wasn't a huge amount of take up on this, but we have to consider that this was on the back following a 3-year Heritage Action Zone project, which did improve substantial amounts of shop frontages in Buxton and some of the areas around that. We invested nearly £180,000 in enhanced tourism activities and promotional campaigns, bringing people into our town centres and making them aware of the fantastic assets and activities and opportunities for come and visit and see around the area. And you can see there some of the stats from some of the social media videos that we delivered. Over 1.5 million hits for one video that was shared around New Mills. Overall, 4 million hits on social media alone, just on some of the activities and the projects and the videos that we put out there. In addition to the social media campaigns, we also run promotional campaigns around our great outdoors, around food, around hospitality, around activities, and these campaigns alone reached over 6 million people. It was fantastic to see the Great Outdoors campaign itself across Manchester Airport on something like 10 huge display boards. So when visitors were coming into Manchester, they could see this and see what opportunities there were all across the High Peak. Again, some of the examples of promotional campaigns on active travel and walk and cycling in the area. We invest a lot of time and effort in supporting the cost of living and improving those people who need to reduce energy costs and support. And we supported all of our council properties to reduce energy costs by providing them with brand new LED lighting for every single household. This provided every household with around £20 to £25 reduction in their energy costs per annum. In addition to providing all the council houses with the LED lighting, we provided new cavity wall insulation in 24 properties in New Mills and Tintwistle. installed new solar panel energy systems on sheltered accommodation in Buxton, and improved 17 sheltered flats with new energy efficiency boiler systems in Buxton. Alongside the actual physical infrastructure, we also ran a programme of support through dedicated campaigns and one-to-one advice and guidance, where we also provide an additional 400 households with energy efficiency advice and an additional 250 households with small energy measures, things like air fryers, if they've got no gas central heating or no gas in the facilities, and other small energy improvements to help the reduction of cost for energy efficiency. Across the whole of that programme, we supported over 4,000 people and over 4,000 households benefiting from new energy efficiency measures. Total reduction in around £170,000 worth of energy savings for all those involved. And just as important, not more important, but just as important, we've saved over 200 tonnes of estimated carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere, which is a real clear ambition of the High Peak Core Plan. So in total for the whole of the community in place, we reached over 6 million people on our tourism campaigns, supported over 4,000 households to take up energy efficiency measures, supported 34 organisations with grants, supported 37 local events or community activities, should be 17, improved 7 commercial buildings improved, 500 square metres of green space improved, 7 new or improved cycle pathways, and 8 local amenities or facilities improved. And in terms of the outcomes, nearly 3.5 million increased footfall visitors in our town centres. This is data recorded on footfall metrics since 2022. We've got 3 new jobs created in our community organisations and 17 jobs safeguarded. We had 2 brand new projects arising from feasibility studies that we undertook. Again, those 4,000 households increased energy efficiency measures and 200 tonnes of carbon dioxide reductions. All those outputs and outcomes achieved everything that we said we would set out to do and overachieved in many areas. Just want to pause there for a second to see if there's any questions on the communities and place area before I move on to the second priority of supporting businesses. I can see some raised hands. Chair, if you'd like to order those.
The microphone didn't want to work then, sorry about that. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Evans first.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Those are incredible and encouraging and really, really positive figures. And I mean, well done to everybody involved in those things. And I certainly know from the impact of the tourism campaigns that we've just outlined, the influx of visitors and people bringing money into the economy in New Mills has been incredible in this last sort of 3 or 4 months. So I just wanted to, it's kind of a thank you for the work that's been done there. It's certainly, I think, bringing a return on the investment that has been used and the sort of monies that have come from the Shared Prosperity Fund, but also the work that's been done by officers and others in delivering that is certainly paying its way. And there's a kind of a plea, I guess, on the back of that as well. For those of you who know it's never always all positive. Is that has created its own kind of sense of problem, really, and that perhaps some of the infrastructure is now beginning to creak, bins and getting overflowing and parking and all of those various issues. So it's a plea to consider how we manage that increased visitor economy and the demands that places on the already sort of fragile infrastructure that the other parts of the the circle, if you like, for the visitor experience brings. Not least, for example, and I'm pretty certain it's now definitely reopened, but the fact that we didn't have any public toilets in New Mills for the vast majority of the last year. And again, that's something that's been remedied. But I think it's a plea to make sure that our left hand and our right hand is working together to make sure that what we are bringing in is experience that makes return visitors a likelihood, and that people go away and evangelize, and that 1 million views becomes 6 million word of mouth sort of recommendations as well.
No problem at all. Yeah, thank you for your comments. And we completely agree with you. Everything should go hand in hand. We bring the visitors in, and we do need to make sure that we are not just bringing them in, treating them well, and making sure the infrastructure is there. It is something in the whole priority around the town centres, and it is something we are looking at, and we will continue to do so, along with sustainable transport and everything else that comes with that. Thank you.
Councillor Hacking.
Hello. I just wanted to ask a question about the light bulbs. Sorry, it's a bit nitpicky, but how were those light bulbs chosen? And did anyone go to test them? Can I ask? Sorry.
Yeah, I can't answer how they were chosen because our assets team work closely with our third-party organisations to deliver that programme. However, I do know that several properties in each area were surveyed to find out what needs and what requirements were there, and the requirements for the individual lights themselves, and they've either been sent directly to households, they can pick them up, and those that are unable to do any retrofitting, we have provided support for those to be completed on their behalf.
Oh, okay. The only reason why I bring it up is because I am a council tenant myself, and my mum was as well before she died, and I was actually quite surprised because I already used LED light bulbs, and the ones that I've used were quite bright and worked really well. But when I fitted one for my mum, that was one of the ones that was supplied by the council, it didn't seem to provide that much more light than the generic energy saving bulbs. And I was quite disappointed by that, and I just thought that if we're trying to change people's habits to switch them towards LED light bulbs, that you would expect them to be a higher quality than the energy saving ones that they might have used previously.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking, how are they chosen, and does anyone test them before they're supplied? That's all.
I can't comment on those individual cases. I can only comment on that LED light bulbs come in a variety of brightnesses and depending on the lumens, and I think it might be dependent on the type of light bulb provided. I can certainly take that back to the assets team. I know there was a range of lumens or brightness across that array of light bulbs. Maybe that was just the one type of fitting that was provided, but I can certainly take that back, and if you want to email me outside this meeting, or I can contact you and we can see what we can do to rectify that.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Dean, do you want to come in?
Yeah, could I should just say to Councillor Hacking, with the LED bulbs, they are supposed to be more, well, they are much more energy saving than the old energy saving bulbs, and that would have been the main criterion, I think, but I don't know what which level of bulb was supplied or anything like that. I wanted to ask actually, which was the sheltered housing that got the PV in Buxton?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I can find that information out to you and send you if that would help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I was just going to come in and say I was involved in a project that got SPF funding, the Glossfest, and we just run the Glossfest last weekend on the 23rd to 25th of May. And obviously we got a bit of funding from different organisations, but without that capital investment, we wouldn't be able to be building the funds every year to try and become self-sufficient. So I do think it has the knock-on effect of the SPF has allowed us to become more self-sufficient for that event, and obviously build capital to pay for the event as we go along, which is good. So it's got another year to be done in 2027 because of obviously on the back of the SPF. So it's brilliant. And obviously seeing the project that's been done at Hadfield Bowling Club, they funded the exterior, but they needed help to get the interior done. And now that is a real good community space that's used by all, and it's being used by the schools as well. So it's really good that we've brought a facility that was not being used by the community into the community, which the club wanted to do with funding from SPF. So it is a really good project, and I think the next round of funding is going to be equally as helpful for people. But I'll let you continue now, Mark, now if I have interjected.
No problem. Thank you very much. So the second priority was supporting our local businesses. And within this priority, we set out to provide funding for our local enterprises through support networks, training hubs and business support initiatives, such as our incubators and accelerators. We set out to deliver research and development grants to drive levels of innovation in our businesses and also help them to grow and be more reliant and grow the economy and our jobs. We wanted to kickstart our local We want to improve our local social economy and provided community and cooperatives and social enterprises with specific grants, helping them to get set up and prosper. And we looked at supporting decarbonisation of businesses and improving the natural environment whilst growing the local economy. So a large chunk of this is around our business support programme, which was delivered in partnership with East Midlands Chamber, where we had dedicated business advisors, workshops, events and grant funding. Through this programme of work alone, we managed to support and engage with over 189 businesses across the Pye Peak. Through the dedicated advice, the workshops, the grants, etc., we've actually created 41.5 new jobs in this area and safeguarded a further 63 jobs. We've introduced 21 businesses to new processes and technologies. We've had 19 businesses that now have adopted new or have improved their own products and services. We've helped improve the productivity of over 25 businesses and helped 9 businesses engage with new markets, whether that's new market share or new markets overseas or outside the area. And 10 businesses have actually developed brand new products to market, which in itself is quite a feat. These are just a few quotes from those businesses and recipients of support, and there's a lot more case studies that we'll be putting on our website very soon. But all in all, a very, very positive response to all the work and the investment that went into that area. Alongside the Accelerator programme, we also worked with Vision Derbyshire at the County Council on the Startup programme, supporting entrepreneurs to develop and register their businesses and move forward in the market. And through that programme, we supported 28 potential entrepreneurs to be enterprise ready. 35 new businesses or early years businesses received non-financial support. Through the programme, we awarded 8 grants of around up to £50,000 of support, which led to 26 new businesses being created, and 18 of those businesses adopting new to the firm technologies or processes. With those new businesses, again comes new jobs. So 26 and a half new jobs were created just through the business startup program. And just one of the articles that was in the Buxton Advertiser of one of the coffee shops who went on and has won numerous awards since starting up the business already in the first 12 months of operation. To coincide with the business support offer, we ran our business development grants focused on driving growth and business innovation. We awarded 49 grants, around £375,000 directly into our local businesses. We supported 46 small businesses, and 13 of those are rural businesses, and levered in over 100,000 match funding from the businesses to create those new products and new processes and develop those new jobs. In terms of our social enterprise support, we awarded £150,000 across 10 social enterprises for them to develop new building improvements, new business opportunities, and additional equipment, and continue to support, grow that social economy, which is so valuable to coincide along with that business support. We also invested £95,000 in energy efficiency support to businesses. We worked with businesses and developed 24 decarbonisation plans and delivered 7 grants to those businesses, which resulted in over 100 tonnes of CO2 reduction estimated savings across those businesses. Key outputs and outcomes from the business sector were that we supported over 280 businesses, 30 entrepreneurs assisted to be enterprise ready, 50 businesses receiving grants, and 24 businesses receiving decarbonisation plans and support to further reduce their carbon emissions. In terms of outcomes, as you can see, 28 new businesses created, which is quite impressive. Never usually get that many businesses in a programme of this nature, with 77 jobs created and 93 jobs safeguarded. Again, nearly 40 businesses adopting new or improving products and services, with 57 businesses adopting new technologies or processes. I just want to pause there again, just in case there's any questions on the business section before I move on to the final section of people and skills. Can't see any hands there, Chair. So if you're happy, I'll move on to the next section.
Yeah, we'll move on. But yes, really useful information. Thanks once again, Mark.
Okay. The final priority in the investment plan was to support our people and the development of skills. And what we said we'd focus our funding on was employment support for those economically inactive people and those out of work. Support for our local areas to fund local skills needs, those that are unique to our businesses and our area. To support funding for green skills and our digital skills. We separated this area into 2 areas. So the first was on employment support for the people that are economically inactive. We worked with both the Bureau and Zinc to provide one-to-one information, advice and guidance to those individuals, and workshops on self-development, confidence, business skills and interview skills. We worked them on benefits advice and volunteering and got them employment opportunities. On the other side of the spectrum, we worked with the University of Derby to support the development of our own people and skills within the workplace, and delivered a programme of training around employability and transferable skills, green skills and business pathways to net zero, and digital skills focusing on marketing and digitalisation for business. As you can see from some of the pie charts there and graphs, it was very well received across all of the areas. And the majority of people were coming into, I think it's health and social care was the majority of take up, that people were looking for those green skills and digital skills support. But we had representation from all different sectors across the board. In terms of the people and skills indicators, our outputs were quite big in this area. The work that we did on economically inactive individuals and helping them to re-engage with the business world and skills was quite astonishing. We worked with 113 socially excluded people and worked with them to access new support. We engaged with 289 individuals with key worker support services, allowing them to provide the best advice and guidance and signposting into the appropriate support service for their individual needs. We helped 100 people re-engage with the benefit system. Nearly 200 people engage in job searching, and over 200 people to support. We provided over 225 people support to gain employment. And of those people, 15 people actually gained a qualification, a vocational license, 66 gained a qualification, and 45 people engaged in further life skills. In terms of outcomes in that area, 200 people sustained engagement with the key worker throughout the whole programme. 85 people are now in employment following that support. 85 people are also involved in community groups as a result of that support. And 134 people reported having an increased employability levels through the development of interpersonal skills or the qualification and support that was provided. In terms of the university support that we provided, the skills and training, 74 people were supported in employment, 38 people sustained employment for over 6 months, 77 people engaged with mainstream healthcare support, and you can see more and more there. In terms of the financial summary, the whole of the programme, as you can see there, we allocated £2.5 million of funding from the UK SPF budget and from the REF budget. And you can just see roughly there how that was broken down in between the 3 priority areas, with just over £1 million allocated to our community in place, just over £1 million on local businesses, and £250,000 on people and skills. Just to show you the distribution of that funds, we just give you an overview there of the number of grants that were supported in each of the key areas across High Peak, but also that's in the left-hand columns. On the right-hand columns, the total value of projects that were undertaken in that area. As you can see, over £1 million on the very bottom line, over £1 million of projects were allocated across the whole of High Peak, and the other grants, as you can see, were allocated as you'd expect, with high proportions across the conurbations of Buxton, Glossop, New Mills, and then grants covering all of the areas of High Peak. I think we had investment in nearly every area. And you can see on the right hand side a very simplistic graph of where the grants have gone to, and just a slight dispersion across the area. I was hoping this would be interactive so you could see what grants are being done in every area. However, that's not quite easy to embed within the PowerPoint, but we do hope to have that available for councillors to pursue at a later stage. So moving forward for the next round of UK SPF, we've now been allocated just over £1 million from a combination of UK SPF funds, REF funds, and an additional top-up, as Anthony mentioned earlier, from EMCA. And that is broken down just over £500,000 of capital investment and £500,000 in revenue. Through various sorry, missed a slide. So previously, we've had to allocate all the funds directly to all the projects. Now that we are part of the Combined Authority are commissioning several of those programmes and projects centrally that will not be coming out of our budget at all. Some of those programmes are a central destination management strategy for the whole of the East Midlands, a centralised startup business support mechanism, some generic business workshop and activities across the whole of the area, and a specific element of investment, inward investment, to help promote the area to businesses and to engage with them on a one-to-one kind of red carpet treatment. So what are we going to be investing our money in this time around? So the three priority areas still remain of communities and place, business support, and people and skills. And they've been simplified somewhat into the kind of healthy, safe and inclusive communities and other areas, which I won't go into details now. The previous programme was split into like 50 different interventions in each priority area. We now only have 1 or 2 areas within each priority. So in terms of our investments in communities and place, we're looking at doing some major improvement works in Manor Park. We are looking to continue an energy efficiency scheme across council stock that was not supported previously. We were looking to deliver a continued community development support and focused on a number of grants around neighbourhood and social action grants, small projects that are right at the heart of communities, an arts and events grants programme again, and a community infrastructure grants programme. The second area within that community place is our thriving places. And we're looking to do some public realm improvements around the Glossop Halls and the market area, some major refurbishment works to the Victoria Halls, and continue our tourism and promotional campaigns on town centre engagement and sustainable travel. Under the supporting local businesses theme, we are going to be continuing with the High Peak Business Accelerator and providing designated support for our businesses. We're looking to continue with the business development grants, support our visitor economy services and businesses, and deliver a number of feasibility studies linked to the growth strategy, which I believe is another agenda item following on from this. And for our final priority, the people and skills, we were looking at delivering a continued employability support and skills programme to continue working with those individuals who are economically inactive at the moment and helping them to get back into work and to re-engage in that employment and skills, etc. I hope that answers all of your questions, and I hope that you can see the impact of the previous programme and how we hope to continue with that moving forward. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Mark. We've got Paige, and then Councillor Scott put their hand up, and then lowered it.
Yep.
But yeah, Paige, Councillor Hacking first.
Hello. I just wondered how the employment support funding was awarded to the Zinc and the Bureau, as in how are they selected and chosen, and whether that funding was available to other community groups, because obviously it's great if you live in Buxton or you live in Glossop, but what about like everywhere in between? You know, so yeah, I just wondered if it was open or whether it was going to be open.
Those programs were awarded through a open procurement exercise. We ran a published opportunity for support to deliver that service, and both the Bureau and Zinc won that on separate awards. Those services were available to all areas of High Peak and all individuals and community groups across the whole of High Peak. Even though those organisations were based in either Glossop or in Buxton, they provided services and workshops and surgeries throughout the whole of High Peak.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Oops. Yeah, thank you. It's certainly very impressive outcomes from all of the funding. It really is. I'd like to ask if there's a more detailed report anywhere. I know this has been a detailed presentation, but a more detailed report that gives us some insight into the type of businesses, the type of, the businesses, the not the type, the exact businesses, organisations, groups that got this funding. And I'm sure I heard at one point there was going to be some kind of a tour for councillors to go and have a look at some of the projects and some of the kind of, how the outcomes have actually affected places, because there's a lot of numbers there, but I'm kind of thinking, but where's this happening? So I'd really like to kind of see live or learn a little bit more about where the money's going. So that's my first question. And I think my second question is a little bit like Paige's, that how do you decide where the money's going? For example, the tourism destination management strategy, you mentioned the Glossop Halls, you mentioned Buxton, but how is that being decided? Because there's a lot of issues about connectivity, particularly in the more rural parts of the High Peak. And I'm just wondering, who are you talking to in the community, and councillors ourselves, who are you actually talking to kind of decide where the need is? Because I do understand that you've said that there's been kind of applications and the like, but I kind of feel that somehow, there's kind of local knowledge that you're perhaps not tapping into. So it's the two things, a more detailed live kind of view on where the money's actually gone, but some reassurance that kind of the community is going to properly be involved in looking at how they can get some funding.
Okay, so first off, in terms of the detail of all the recipients of those grants, yes, we have all that information and the impact that is being delivered for each of those individual grant recipients, whether they are business or community groups. So that can be made available. It's not in one complete report. Each individual section or each individual project has some sort of summative evaluation at the end of each one. So I can provide that in detail depending on what is required. So more than happy to have that conversation or provide that information at a later stage. In terms of how the funding is allocated, there is a UK SPF board made up of councillors, made up of representatives from the voluntary community sector, the business support, and we investigate how best to allocate what funding we have available against the priorities which government set in place for the requirements of that. That then is shared and put forward as part of a cabinet report and agreed with Exec and ALT, and then agreed to move forward on that funding. But there is representation at a variety of levels from all stakeholders that goes into those proposals.
I kind of, maybe it's just passed me by, but I don't know if it's just the exec, the councillors that are actually part of this board or who is on it, but I just kind of wonder if all councillors, or how are we invited on, or how are just not quite clear how this works.
I can say it's helpful. So the board, on the board is Anthony and myself, me as regen, Anthony as leader. The board does have representatives, as Mark said, from Scott, so the MP, past and present. It has representatives of the visitor economy. It has representatives of the third sector. So basically, when you look at breakup of all the types of organisations that might benefit our input. That's it. But the board is very high level. The board is the governance arrangements for okaying it. In terms of the detail of when a proposal comes forward, principally that's through interest, but actually, so people will come forward and ask often, council, I would like some money for something, and often the conversation is, actually, we have this grant pot. You might find that some of the aims that you're looking for come from that, because it's been very useful in that regard, and that's across the council. The voluntary sector are well aware of it and have been publicising it. So often there's far more interest than we've been able to allocate. So there is a level of objectivity in terms of like the scoring and that's come, so that recommendation comes to the board. But I'm, as you've seen today, and I think others have acknowledged, we could spend 10 times this amount every year, really. So, but what we have had, I think we've, as is in the tradition of this council, we've used it really well, and I think it has been used to great effect, as you heard some of those numbers. And I totally get what people are saying in terms of social impact and stories, because that's the sort of qualitative sort of background I come from. I want to hear that. So I do think we can give some more examples of that, but you only need to speak to some of the groups that will be receive funding in your area to hear the impact it's had. So I do think getting a list of those, so that if you're not already aware of them, you should be. Maybe that's something we can take forward in terms of just making sure that ward councillors are aware of successful grant awards that within their ward, if they're not already aware. But I think many of you are. Many of you are really deeply rooted in what's happening in your community. So I'm pretty sure you'll be aware of it. You may not necessarily know the money was UK SPS, which is something to look at. But hopefully that helps.
No, it does. And I do know in Hayfield, for example, I know who's had them and I worked with them on it. It's more at the strategy level, that kind of the bigger things, the bigger spends, rather than the individual grants. It's more that I'm wondering where the input from ward councillors comes.
So I think on that side of things, we through these committee meetings, through our briefings with members, through it's not just the regen team, but we work with other services. So we've worked collaboratively with other heads of services and other teams who tell us what the ward members are identifying to them. So we're picking up through that activity, and also now we've done 2 years worth, we've seen where we've had positive impacts. We've seen where also as well we can potentially lever in further funding. So in some instances that we can invest through SPF, say £50,000, and it can lever in further funding. So sometimes with parks and play areas, that can be supplemented through Sports England funding, for example. So we get, I think Anthony used the term bang for your buck. You get a bigger bang for your buck because we're effectively investing only £50,000 of our money, but it can lever in maybe another £100,000 from somewhere else. So it makes the money spread further. So sometimes those, become priorities in that respect, where we can stretch the money further. But a lot, as Damien has described, is demand led. So lots, as Mark had explained, lots of grant opportunities were for both businesses and community groups, that they would come forward, and yes, they had to go through an assessment process and evaluation process to demonstrate that they could meet the parameters of the funding and that they could meet the outputs and outcomes, and they could contribute to that. But ultimately, we've been able to support lots and lots of grassroots organisations, as well as businesses, as well as creating jobs. So we've been able, hopefully, to touch all those corners on a kind of grander scale in terms of supporting some of the council big project priorities like Glossop Market Halls, etc. But also actually making a real difference to those local communities as well. And it's through these conversations and feedback, etc., from members and different committees where we pick up some of those issues and priorities locally. So I'll leave it there because other people have got their hands up as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I do think it's impressive. I don't want to make it what I'm saying sound negative, because you know it is impressive and a lot has been done. It's just, you know, those were some questions I had around it. So thank you.
Councillor Quinn, I'm going to bring you in as well.
Yeah, I've just got a question really on the selection of people for the skills training and the jobs help. How was that done?
Sorry, can I just clarify what you mean? The selection of people or the selection of delivery partners?
The selection of people, the people who were chosen for the help.
It's an open program of support, which is run through the Zinc or through the Bureau, and they are funded to go out and find these individuals, offer support and advice and guidance.
Okay, that's really good. How long are we monitoring the impact for? I know it says 6 months sustained employment. Are we going to monitor for longer than that, or?
We hope to. The 6 months sustained employment was a specific output for government, which is why I've recorded it there to show you what we said we do and what we would do. However, we can continue to monitor that as long as we support the programme.
Right, okay. That's
outside of our government arrangements, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. And also, in terms of funding, in Buxton in particular, we don't really have a sports hall. Would like funding for a community sports hall, for example, like the one up Harper Hill, be something that this could look at?
For this next year's allocation, all the funding has been initially allocated. However, if this is a need and demand for your area, I think if you can continue to feed that in as part of the growth plans and for your area, we will bring all these to the table when we get future funding to see what we can deliver and how.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. If no one's got any further questions, we'll move on to the growth strategy. And I'm assuming, Damien, you're going to come in and say something, and then Lorraine and Mark are going to pick up some more detailed questions if needed.
Absolutely, Chair. So as the committee, I know we've had a number of the background sort of presentations and detailed information that's come into this in previous committee sit-ins. The current growth strategy in High Peak was adopted in 2017. So as you'll all know, there's been a lot of change in the world, not least sort of pandemic, changing patterns, the ebb and flow of certain sectors. So there has been a lot of change. But basically the purpose of this document, it's not to be a promotional document. It's a statement of the opportunities that we can hopefully seize on and the barriers and a plan to how we address them. And this strategy is for 3 years. Obviously, the focus there is that this council under local government reorganisation may not exist in that period, and we really want to focus our efforts because this has been an agenda of the council via our borough plan, and I know individual councillors, we're all here to improve the life of residents. We want to make sure that people have well-paid jobs, that businesses are thriving, that there's housing delivery, our town centres are the best they can be, and obviously with the visitor economy being an important part as well, and making sure that that's as inclusive as possible and that wherever possible it's sustainable. So obviously I said there's a lot of context here in terms of there's a lot of changes nationally and housing challenges locally that I know many councillors will see in their own casework bags. We've got the housing targets coming in. And we obviously have the creation of the East Midlands Mayoral Combined Authority. You heard in the previous presentation that has changed the way some things are done and for opportunities. But you'll see in the strategy and followed through in the action plan, which for me is the focus because that's what we're here to deliver, and we want to make sure that we're, but you'll see a very extensive action plan in the agenda. But we've got those 6 core missions around accelerating our housing delivery, unlocking sites, particularly around affordable. You'll see a theme throughout this is that this strategy interacts with many other strategies, not least the housing strategy, which we adopted recently, but also the visitor strategy, the tourism strategy, and others. And so housing, employment growth. So we need to look at employment land, modernising premises and higher value. And because one of the limiting factors has been the land available. So it's about squeezing every ounce of that we can out of all of our land. And if there's anything the council is in a position to do to support that. So a theme throughout this is a desire to be more direct intervention. That can take many forms, but to get things done where things may have languished or things may have not progressed as fast as they can, actually we're in a unique position as a local authority to expedite things and to intervene, and there's certainly this strategy is identifying that. So I mentioned the third mission is about the local visitor economy. We do have the tourism strategy, and it's really about delivering that, diversifying tourism, getting more people to stay overnight because they spend much more in the local economy than those that are day trippers with the picnics, etc. We already heard from Councillor Evans about, as well as the opportunities, the pressures that can bring. So again, need making sure. Obviously, we have the rural economy, and we have a number of smaller villages and towns outside of the larger towns. So again, it's making sure that that the whole of our economy, the rural and the urban economy, is considered. Our towns, it's been a theme throughout this council and the previous council, which have been had the pleasure to be in a position on the executive, but we're looking at town centre master plans. I think it was again mentioned, New Mills was the example earlier, but a number of our market towns outside of the larger towns, we definitely want to follow through on that. So looking at improvements, so looking at master plans to bring together what we can do, particularly in short order, given I said that this strategy's life is for that 3 years, and obviously it builds business and skills, so strengthening partnership working, but a real focus on small businesses. The majority of the businesses that operate in the High Peak are small businesses. We don't have many huge employers. There are a number of larger ones for our area, but in the context nationally, we don't have many employers with significant hundreds or thousands of staff. So that real focus on, and you'll know from your own communities that this area is made up of a lot of sometimes micro, or known termed as micro businesses, under 9 people, but one shop, someone selling from home, someone that does has 1 or 2 staff as they grow, but it's wanted to give them the confidence to expand and to maybe move into that small business unit from out of the local, the garage, etc. Because I do think that's where our ability to grow our economy and have the money that comes from that back in our town centres. Just canter through quickly, just 3 strategic priorities. That MCA growth, obviously there is a place for the Mayor, East Midlands Mayor and the East Midlands Authority now in this, so it's making sure that we can align, and if there are opportunities, which there are funding opportunities and other opportunities coming through, that we're making greater use of those. Obviously making use of Section 106 and other things, and any of our council assets is a real priority there, and obviously encouraging green and knowledge-based economy, those things that are hopefully more future-proofed as well, and that hopefully are better paying, so that we can get the average pay of our residents up. Obviously lots of challenges. I mean, you'll know most of them. Again, most of them will probably come across your casework bags, but we do have an ageing population, and we do have many of our younger people that choose to move away from the area because of the cost of housing, the lack of housing, job opportunities. We do have many big cities on our peripheries, so again that can be a negative, but it can also be and needs to be a positive, because this is a wonderful place to live. People choose to live here because of how nice it is, and we need to utilize that as a selling point. Obviously the other big consideration is around that balancing environmental protections with and our heritage alongside the need for growth and that housing, etc., because I know that will be an area that we challenge for many councils, but particularly given our particularities with the national park and other things. But many opportunities. We obviously, as I said, there's funding coming from national government as well as potentially the regional authority. We we have a number of projects already in train, as you know, revitalising Buxton, repurposing and improving existing brownfield sites, and other the potential for stalled developments, as there are a number that probably people are aware of, where a developer has not completed something or something that, and obviously just that general opportunity to shout about High Peak as well. Like I said, there's a lot of interaction in this strategy with many other strategies of the council, not least the local plan. And you'll see from the action plan that I think 42 off the top of my head of the actions are related to the local plan. So that's a really important to the growth of our area, and to the delivery of housing, and enough housing of the quality and of the type that our community needs. As I mentioned, the tourism strategy, the housing strategy, all interact with this. So I think really, as has been mentioned at the beginning by the chair, I do think that the implementation of this growth strategy, and particularly the action plan, is probably going to be a key area for this committee. It's there in black and white to basically be a measure of how we're doing in terms of delivering upon it. It's very detailed. In terms of the action plan, we don't make any bones about that, because we do want it to be very tangible, want it to be measurable, want people to be able to deliver in the time that we have, and also this be a legacy of this council. And if in whatever successor council comes to govern this area after LGR, like the North Derbyshire Unitary Council, we want to be handing the keys over in the best possible way, and that actually we're already doing great things. There's more things to do, and to give us the best opportunity for that to continue under whatever local government arrangements there are in the future. So happy to take questions, but it's probably better just if I hand up, maybe go to Andrew if there's anything he'd like to add, particularly, and Lorraine, and then we can take maybe joint questions if that's okay with you, Chair.
No problem. Lorraine, Andrew?
I don't think there's anything to add, Chair, from us. I think Damien's covered it off really well. So we'll take any questions, or support Damien answering any questions.
I think we're really lucky that we've got such a good set of officers dealing with regeneration and growth. I mean, you look at the market hall in Glossop, you look at the projects in Buxton, the revitalising Buxton. These are two major projects that are run by a relatively small council. So I'd say well done for everyone. Councillor Quinn, do you want to come in?
I'm going to sound like a strict record, because I do worry about any reliance on tourism, because the jobs tend to be very low paid, and we do need to look at other areas. So I was pleased to hear people saying that we need to look at other employment opportunities. In terms of housing, in Buxton, it's not really the cost of housing that makes our young people leave, because a lot of them go to Manchester, or in the case of mine, to Liverpool, where the housing is much more expensive. They go there because of the jobs and the opportunities. Our housing in Buxton is actually quite a lot cheaper. But our connectivity is really, really poor. Transport is absolutely vital in terms of us getting our young people to stay here, and also in terms of our development. And we don't really have a lot of control over transport, but it is something that needs to be looked at really, really carefully. Also, I'd like to see us take a grip on the kind of housing, because I don't think, and I'm speaking for Buxton here, but the out of town big developments that developers love are not really what we need. I'm glad that we're looking at redundant buildings, but I think that we need more housing that fits the people who are living here, which is, it tends to be older couples. I think we need smaller scale areas, and I think that we need to be quite adventurous, but we also need to take a lot of control over what we're doing, and not so much let housing developers tell us what we're having, but to actually say this is what is appropriate here. Not massive 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses, but smaller, and starter homes for people as well, I think.
So, well, taking them in reverse order, I think in terms of housing, you'll have heard about direct intervention. We've got a really ambitious housing strategy which sets out the number of properties that the council directly builds and manages and owns, as well as affordable houses. And when I talk about it's not just the cost, it's the type, it's the scale. I do take the point when you talk about younger people, but it's a mix of things. We've got to have the right mix of housing, job opportunities and transport, as you've mentioned. We do have some good transport links, and but we've got some very poor ones as well. And connectivity amongst High Peak isn't brilliant. It's reliant on a handful, well, less than a handful of bus routes. We've got a lot of east-west traffic as well through the train lines, but we need to do that. But like with everything the council does, and particularly in this area, it all comes down to partnership working. We've got at a regional level, we've got the East Midlands Mayor, we've got our neighbouring authorities, as mentioned, with the South Yorkshire area and the Greater Manchester area that we need to work with. And I do think they're receptive because it's mutually beneficial. People want lovely places to live and to work in places that give them opportunities. And I think that has been what much of High Peak has been. But again, it's about retaining as much as we can of that income here. That is about, as the chair mentioned, about the market hall. That is about revitalising Buxton as much as we can retain in this borough. So every pound sort of spent here is retained here. I don't know, many of you will be aware of the locally principles, but that is it's the hard graft, but that is the thing that improves a place. If people are feeling wealthier, people spend that money locally. It is a virtuous cycle, and that is what makes better places. And this is already a great place. We're just looking at increment, trying to make it even better, but not diminishing. There are challenges, but I think we've got our eyes wide open. We know what they are, and we've got very specifically an action plan, and it's interrelated with lots of other action plans within this council. So like I said, it's all very well strategy. You can have a strategy, you can put it on the shelf. This will not be that. It's a short-term one. We want it focused, and it's got a very, very tangible action plan. So hopefully that will reassure you, the Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'd also like to see us go for hotels rather than holiday lets as well. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, well, within the tourism thing, there is about diversity of the accommodation, and it is that we know, like I say, it's that general comment that all visitor brings opportunities, but it brings pressures, whether that's traffic, trying to move people to public transport, whether that's Airbnbs and second homeowners, etc. We have done, as you know, we've used our mechanisms to try and manage some of that now, but this is about continuing that.
Can I ask a question about that? I'm sorry, because my understanding was the 200% council tax was to be used for holiday lets, but it doesn't seem to be transpiring that way, because when I've heard people talking about it, people have been told, well, if you lived in it, you pay the 200%, but actually you're not. So the holiday lets seem to be exempt from it. And I would like some clarification on that from someone.
Unless someone, I mean, what I would say is that's not my particular area of executive. Oh, there we go. Andrew's saving me. Go for it, Andrew.
It's not my specific area, but I think I might be able to help. So obviously the premiums on second homes, as you've indicated in your question. I think the issue, I suppose, around holiday lets is about whether they are rateable under the business rate system, or they'll apply under council tax, and there are certain rules around that. So I can provide you more detail with that, so you're absolutely clear. But I'll probably do that after the meeting, if that's okay.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Problem is, though, with giving it a rateable value, if it's the only business premises they own and it's under 12,000, we wouldn't see any income from it anyway, or the government wouldn't. So it's very difficult, because you don't want to just give out make it rateable. It's rated under 12,000 because of the valuation from the government, and then we give it small business rate relief. So sometimes getting a bit of council tax is still better than rating it below 12,000. So it does have its advantages. I think the government probably needs to look at holiday lets and make them in areas where there is masses of holiday lets and tourism areas, make them chargeable at a lower rate or don't have small business rates on them to try and discourage properties being taken off the market. Maybe, I don't know, but that's something for the government, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, that's one of the dilemmas. But I mean, I know the Valuation Office Agency. It's not a choice of the occupier, the owner. It's actually the legal position. So I know there's been a big focus because we've had a lot of casework from the Valuation Office Agency. I mean, when the small business rate relief, we still, as a local authority, get the income. Actually, it's just that the government doesn't get anything. It funds it through Section 31 grant. But yeah, you're quite right. It's a grey area. But I'll get somebody to provide a complete picture to the councillors.
Yeah, because other areas, I mean, for example, in Wales, I think Derbyshire Dales or the Peak National Park are actually charging for holiday lets, and obviously it brings income in, but it also, in Wales, it has put loads of housing back on the market for people to live in, which is really important.
You could do something like a tourism tax, maybe, like the.
Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to in Wales. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to bring Councillor Hacking in because you've been waiting very patiently, so I'm going to bring you straight in now.
Hi, yeah. I was just going to offer a bit of a counter view to Rachel Quinn's point, because it's probably my area's a bit different to Rachel's, but I hear a lot. I have a lot of constituents who are trapped in housing that isn't suitable. It's either mouldy, it's crowded, not very nice places to live. So I think there needs to be a kind of strategy to help people move out of shared accommodation to one-bed flats, for example. And I think there needs to be more support for newer parents, perhaps, to move from flats to houses, because that seems to be a problem that keeps cropping up. And obviously, I know there's a lot of things coming in about social housing and mould, but mould issues are a thing that I hear a lot about, which is obviously quite distressing. But you know, if we haven't got enough houses to move people to, how do we sort structural mold problems out? So yeah, I think it needs some thought. It's all very well and good saying that there's enough housing in the area, but if it's not, what self-respecting 20-year-old man wants to be living in a shared house? You know, what self-respecting young mum wants to be living in a flat where she can't take her kids out to a garden or has to keep her windows shut because of cannabis or what? You know, it's that we need to be providing a quality of living as well. Anyway, yeah, run over. Bye.
And Chair, I totally agree, and you'll be pleased to hear that the executive in this council that you serve on agrees, and that's why we have a housing strategy that exactly has been adopted this year, which exactly means that I just refresh my mind while you were talking. The priorities increase the supply and quality of homes and affordable housing. Some of that is by direct intervention, as I mentioned, a theme. So homes that positively contribute to the health, wellbeing and independence of residents. And again, that is about fit for purpose housing. No one should be living in housing that's mouldy, or particularly where people have young children. And that is something, again, where the council is seeking through both the types of housing that's built privately, that it has planning control over, or influence over, rather, probably more apt to say, but also what we can do as a housing provider and to hopefully provide more, because generally we are a good housing landlord. Well, we are a good landlord, and we are seeking to improve them. So again, everything you're saying is in there. It's definitely a sister strategy to this growth strategy, because we need good places for people to live, because the good place to live is the foundation for everything else. Whether you get, good education, good employment opportunities, you need to be having somewhere that's safe and affordable, basically.
Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I think I've maybe not made myself very clear. We do have, relative to other places, quite cheap rented accommodation for young people to get. What we have, well, I mean, on my road, we've got quite reasonable houses selling for about 140,000, which isn't an excessive amount of money. However, about 4 or 5 of those houses are Airbnb. So they're taken off the housing market, which is something that we ought to look at. We do need social housing, and I think that is really important. The decent home strategy is a really good, really positive thing. But what we certainly don't need to let people do, and I think you were saying this anyway, is we don't want loads of expensive houses built, because they're neither use nor ornament to people who want to move into good quality housing. And that means we need to control the market, which I guess we're saying.
I think with all these things it'll be balanced. I'm not saying that there will be a need for some larger houses. There are obviously people probably living in small houses that don't suit their needs now. So we need with everything, but I mean, in terms of, I think that is definitely taken account of in the housing strategy. I'm ashamed for my housing exec colleague Fiona Sloman isn't here to stall the virtues, but hopefully I've given it a good shot. But I definitely know that many of their aspirations are captured in there, and like I say, the growth strategy is it interlinks with so many other strategies, and he's going to be an absolute focus in these next 3 years. And obviously housing is a big element of that, not least because of the local plan under the stewardship of Councillor Clough, who never an easy task, that one.
Has anyone else got any comments? Yeah, I mean, I'd raise that when I do events in the Glossop area, I always try and use local suppliers where possible. We had 3 or 4 different food outlets that were all based in Glossop or Hadfield that came along and provided food for the Glossfest. And when we did the beer and the ciders, we used Big Stone, who were based in High Peak. We used Torside, Thornset Brewery. We used Buxton, and we used like other breweries that were just outside the area as well. So, and Chapel Brewery. So I used pretty much all the local breweries.
It's like you've used the council's procurement plan, Chair. That's exactly our approach to procurement.
And I think it's a good opportunity to promote them places, and then they can hopefully get business off it. So it's a really good strategy, and I think it's something that we should encourage. Maybe some of our grant funders, so if they're doing events and things like that, is to unleash shared prosperity. Say, we have this growth strategy, can we where possible use local suppliers as part of it? And that might be something that could influence the grants as well. I don't know whether that's something to be part of it, but obviously if we can encourage people to use local businesses where possible, local tradespeople, we can then obviously keep the income in the High Peak and hopefully develop jobs. And in thinking regarding housing as well, I mean, we've got a massive housing project that's going on in the centre of Buxton, the revitalising of Buxton, and the project that Capital and Centric are going to deliver to us be game changing for the housing market and hopefully the demographic of Buxton. And I think that's something that can be encouraged. And working with Capital and Centric, they can hopefully work in other areas of the borough because they're one of our partners and help us redevelop sites that may be falling or failing, or we can hopefully get some further development done with them, which would be really fantastic. And so I think it's something that's very exciting for the Buxton area and for the Buxton Council is that we have got this project going on. Councillor Clapp, I'm going to bring you in now.
Yeah, the points Rachel's making, she's made a number of times before, and they're not wrong. I think the one point I disagree with her is that young people are not leaving this area because there's no housing. It's the lack of housing and the lack of jobs put together that mean that young people are leaving the area. But I just want to underline that that is a basic tenet of the strategy, that we have a declining young people population, we have an increasing older population, and if we're going to do anything about that, then we have to grow the economy, and that relies on the involvement of young people. But I also entirely see Rachel's frustration, and it's all our frustration about actually how you do this, because at the moment, as things stand, we are in the hands of something like 11 or 12 large national developers. They will build what they want to build. And what we are relying on as we speak is that the government acts as quickly as it can to do the things that it wants to do. So you'll have heard that Angela Rayner has more recently talked about changes to the law so that there's more opportunities for small builders. That's not because she thinks small builders are necessarily a good thing, or that we ought to be giving small builders more of a business opportunity. It's because that challenge through small builders to the national builders is what will secure us will secure us the kind of housing that's needed, rather than the kind of housing that we've been building for far too long. And I just want to wave a flag for this council, particularly because I've been around it now for a long time, but missed 4 years of it out. This is a council that is actually trying hard to do things. It is not a council that is trying hard not to do things. And that's the situation that this council inherited.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Councillor Clapp, for that interjection. Yeah, like we're investing in Glossop Market Hall, we're investing in Buxton, hopefully going to invest in the central area as well. So I think we've got some really, really good council officers and council executive members that are pushing the agenda that we want, and hopefully that can go forward as a legacy that will be remembered for other councils close buildings or give buildings away to community groups. We invest in them and improve them. Damien, did you want to come in, or do you want me to move on to? Are you happy?
Just to say, I agree with Councillor Clapp's comments, and particularly we are a council doing things. That's exactly what we set out to achieve, and that's what we will do. We are doing, and we will do. That's why I talk in terms of intervention, very focused action plans. These are the documents that drive local government. If there are any members of the residents watching this, there might be only a few, but basically that these are the believers when we say we're going to do these. We're going to move everything within the council to make sure we deliver on these things, irrespective of local government reform. But if anything, that's just sharpened our attention and our focus to make sure that we get things done in the next 2 or 3 years. Thanks, Chair.
Great, thanks for that. If no one else has got any comments, I'm going to move to the revitalising Buxton now. If there's anything that needs to be discussed in part 2, Andrew will let us know. But if not, if we just get an update from either Anthony or Andrew on that, just to see where we are with it. It may not be much progress, all the rain, but it'd be useful to hear.
We'll just give a brief update, Chair, very brief. We've obviously, you mentioned at the start, at the next meeting on the 3rd of July, we're going to bring the paperwork back, which will provide the outcome of milestone 2. So it's, if you like, the project's will have moved another step along the way. There are sort of 3 milestones in the pre-development agreement. Milestone 2 will take us to REBA stage 2. So if you recall at your meeting in March, we presented details of the outcomes of milestone 1. In that milestone, Keppel and Centric had started through they'd appointed all their design team, got all the professionals in place, started to investigate the actual site for development, and started to the first main piece of work I think we articulated in that report was it started to look at an architectural interpretation of Buxton, and it translated that into some initial designs. I think we've provided some examples of those, some initial concepts for the look of the buildings to sort of, if you like, to blend into the existing vernacular of Buxton. They use that obviously to feed into the first pre-application discussions with our local planners. All got very positive feedback. You'll also recall in that update that there was, and there will be in the second milestone, there was an update around the viability of the development. So there's the first cut of the development costs, and there was quite a viability gap at that stage, which I think we outlined. That's not unusual at an early stage of the project. So during milestone 2, which has been going on since March, they sort of homed in terms of detailed design of each of the 12 blocks of accommodation on the site, looking to make sure they're sort of cost efficient and effective. They've done even more intrusive surveys on the area that's surrounding the springs, so as they can have a full understanding of the requirements around particularly the podium that will sit over the car park and the car parking numbers that the number of spaces that will be produced in the new plans. So all that detail will come back. I think there's been a number of adjustments to the initial thinking, including a slight increase in the number of units of accommodation that will go on the site. But all that will come back in that milestone 2 report. I think just at this stage, Chair, I think I'll just bring Lorraine in, because another important activity that's been taking place during this milestone is the consultation engagement process. So you'll be aware that that will launch in May, and I'll get Lorraine just to do a short update on where we got to with that.
Yeah, so we had a period which ended at the weekend of engagement throughout May, with newsletters that were distributed to local people, local businesses, but also a public engagement session that took place in the town centre, in the space, so the former track and trail unit, which was really, really well attended. I think 400 plus people attended on the day. And I and members of the team were there throughout parts of the afternoon and into the evening, and it was really, really busy, and really kind of positive and engaging conversations that took place. We will get a full breakdown on that, and as well as the survey material that went out and feedback from the public, which is we're still collating all of the information on that. But I think it is fair to say that it was one of the busiest. Capital and Centric themselves have said it was the busiest engagement session that they've ever conducted. So I think that's hopefully really, really positive. I think that's probably for now what we will do when we take the report next month, or the July meeting. We'll be able to provide more detail on that as part of the end of milestone 2, some more kind of data and statistics around who's engaged, what the feedback, some specific aspects of the feedback will be included within that report, as we then are seeking to move forward potentially to the next stage of development and move to milestone 3.
And then just to round that off, obviously that consultation and engagement is very much inform, if you like, the sort of final designs, because we're getting to that stage where we're getting to almost want to lock down in a sort of design freeze for the scheme. So the consultation engagement has been input into that. The other thing, just to add, Councillor Greenhouse chaired a stakeholder group a couple of days before the consultation engagement launch, so there was some positive interaction with key stakeholders, and lots of food for thought that came through that, particularly around things like accessibility and stuff like that, really. So that will obviously play into the final plans as well.
Yeah, just one question I was going to ask. Is there going to be like change in like the board or the makeup or the work? Because obviously Vision Buxton, they've decided to disband, haven't they? It is Vision Buxton, isn't it?
Yeah, Vision Buxton has decided to cease operating, but other elements of the We Are Buxton group are represented on the board. So we do have representation from the town team, the civic association, etc. So we've got a variety of representatives that are part of the wider We Are Buxton group or family, as well as other stakeholders. But you know, we have said as part of the terms of reference we would continue to keep the membership of the board under review as we move through the project, and if we feel it appropriate to widen that, etc., then we can do with the agreement of the board.
Great, thank you. Has anyone else got any comments, or are we happy to wait for next month and go through more detailed reports as and when we receive them? I'll take that silence as yes, everyone's happy to move to the next page.
I just wanted to say that I was really happy to hear the numbers of the engagement. Happy that we could say that the public have been engaged. So yeah, it's just positive note. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So if everyone is happy, we will move to the next agenda item number 9. Have we had any questions for the executive members, Rachel?
None, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to move to excluding the press and public. I'm not going to read it because it's in the report, but could you end the recording and then we will move on to part 2.